Welcome to the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership Podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a drop of straight talk you can't get anywhere else. We discuss the whiskeys to drink, music to listen to, and what it really takes to be an effective leader. I'm your host, Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. Tonight's guest, award-winning author, humorist, keynote speaker, and letter writing lady, Amy Daughters. Hey, what you drinking? Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, hey, we talked a little bit about the metaphor of jazz, but when it comes to music, you've listed some pretty strong, iconic folks. Not necessarily in the jazz realm, though. Not necessarily in the jazz genre, but I can appreciate some Ronnie Millsap. I don't know that I'm familiar with Don Williams, but Toby Keith. Toby Keith he's kind of a big deal. So talk a little bit about your musical preferences and some of your favorites.
Right. And I do like jazz, but it's like a Saturday morning coffee thing for me. So I don't know I like all, I know what I like, but I don't know what it's called. But so 70s and 80s, 90s country, kind of my thing. That's how I grew up, 8-track, cassette. I did the whole CD, the whole realm. But yeah, Don Williams is a Texas singer with this really deep, like very mature, like oaky voice, but I like it because it's very raw. It's not polished and it's not perfect. It's just he is who he is and the lyrics are good. But Toby Keith, iconic, and he's kind of a badass a little bit, and I like that. And he sings about what he wants to sing about. I know he had people writing for him, but I mean his songs kind of reflect his personality. And Ronnie Millsap, I mean, how can you not like it with the synthesizer background, Smoky Mountain Rain. I mean, very dramatic, rain running down his face, getting an 18-wheeler, hitchhiking. I mean, that's just good stuff.
It really is. I mean, I pride myself in just what you said. I just like music. I don't know that I necessarily like particular genres. There is a place for almost everything. There are places where I like to listen to classical music. There are places where, in situations where I like to listen to jazz music. Typically, jazz music for me comes in when I'm trying to be creative, when I'm needing to be creative. That's where jazz music comes in. When I'm just trying to have a good time, sounds like that's where country music might make sense.
Right. Yeah, you get your Toby Keith on. And then when it's late in the evening and you've had too many old Wellers, then you put the Millsap on and really get in your feels, That's my recommendation. Yeah, I use music to write too, mostly instrumental. No singing, because that gets, the words get in my head. But I like but I'm a sports person, so I like the Rudy and Hoosiers, the soundtracks to those. I can really bang some stuff out to those.
Gotcha. Now, I have heard a lot of whiskey stories, and I'm telling you, I think I've covered almost every major distillery whiskey brand in the whiskey stories that I've heard. I have never ever heard of a story that connects Blanton's with the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Please, please.
Probably one of my favorite life stories. I've never shared it, like publicly. But yeah, well, I worked actually for a wine and spirits distributor before I started writing, and so my friends and I, the opportunity to buy a barrel of Blanton's came up, but it took us like 40 of us to pay for it, and so we each got our own bottles, labeled however we wanted to label it. That was part of the deal. This was like 2002. So my bottle says Texas Tech Red Raiders national champions, and then it's on the neck with the little horse on top of it. And so everybody's made fun of my choice. Oh, your children are going to drink it. They're probably not going to even drink it because everybody's going to be dead when Texas Tech wins the national championship. And my intention is football. If they were one shot away in men's basketball about 6 years ago, I think I would have drank it that night. But That's probably the two things I would drink it for. But we had this thing bottled, and my friends had a case made for it, and it sits outside my office in this case. And people are like, "That's hilarious!" But every time we get a new coach, I send them a picture of it. I'm like, and we have a drinking order. Like, here's what order we're going to drink this thing in when it really goes down. And we fantasize about it, and we talk about it all the time. And actually, one of my friends, the guy whose daughter got married in Guatemala, he had another bottle that he saved for his daughter's wedding. So we opened it, and we're at his daughter's wedding, taking a shot of it. And I looked him straight in the eye. I said, "You know what, man? This is what's going to taste like when we win the whole thing."
Wow. You know, it's something that's occurring to me right now. You seem to be creating experiences for people. And that seems to be the idea, possibly the idea behind your writing. It's certainly the idea behind this letter writing, and just the idea of the Blantons and the story behind, what this means and when you're going to open it. It's more than just the physical act. It's the story behind the physical act. Is that something that you're just falling into, or is that something that you are just drawn to, the story behind?
I think I'm drawn to it. And I think I'm drawn to a great story. And the thing is, I don't think I create anything intentionally. I think it just kind of, but that's probably my personality or who I am. I had a grandfather who was like that. He was an experienced guy, and he was always the one, leading the room in some way. And I think that's probably just inherent to my nature. But but what it creates for me is this incredible ride. Like Blanton, this is a great story. And when we drink it, I can't wait for the day. And I don't care if I'm wearing Depends and I'm 95 years old in a nursing home. That
You
stuff's
go
going to go
you
down.
gonna drink that bottle.
Oh yeah, I don't care. Nobody's going to stop me. Who's going to arrest me when I'm 95? Or it could happen next year. But yeah, I think that's a very humbling compliment. But yeah, but I mean, it's brought me a lot of joy, and then great stories to tell.
Yeah, and I'm also drawn by, and I'd love to hear the story behind your invisible board of directors. And these are folks who inspire you. They could be living, they could be dead, they could be people that have been part of your life. They could be just people that you've read about. Who are some folks that you think about when you're needing to make elements of an important decision?
Right. I always think of my grandmother, my dad's mom, and she was a great moral compass because she was one of those people who loved you unconditionally, but she was going to totally call you out on everything that you had done wrong. Like, "You're great and I love you, but put the cigarette down. You've lost your mind." But even she would go deeper than that. But she was a great moral compass because there's nothing better than somebody with a lot of wisdom who's lived through a lot of things, who's 1,000% got your back, but is going to hold you accountable to being, as much as you can be. And so she would be one. My father, she's passed away, obviously. My father, who passed away suddenly 6 years ago, he was the example of let's do stuff outside of the box. The whole come up with a crazy idea, but don't just talk about it, but follow through on it. And I think a lot of stuff that I've done is a legacy to what
Mm.
he did before me, but he never told me what to do. Like, he never said, "Here's what," he told me what to do, like dads do, but he just supported me no matter how nuts. So like the letter, he died during the letter writing thing, but he just was like, "Yeah." I'd be like, "Dad, I have a crazy idea. Let's, do this." He'd be like, "Yeah, let's get a map out and figure out how we're going to do it." There was never anything that was too far outside of the box. But he
Mm.
also would make sure that you had your checkbook balanced and you went to the dentist every 6 months. So he was like the most outside the box, inside the box guy there ever was. But that's a great perspective in decision making, though, because it's like, let's go big, but let's also keep it in where we can manage it and we're all taking care of our responsibilities. And I believe I also said Eleanor Roosevelt, because Eleanor Roosevelt was 100% herself in the 40s in the national spotlight. And you didn't do that then as a woman. You weren't
Yeah.
100% yourself. And she was not a looker. And she didn't, I'm not saying you don't have to be a looker, or you don't have to be a looker. That's not my point, but she just went with what she got. And she changed the world. She was a proponent for people who didn't have someone, especially at her level, to to uh to stand up for them, and she continued to do that unafraid and had the support of this husband who I don't know that it was a traditional marriage in any sense, but she had the ear of the most powerful person, and she changed what happened for a lot of people during that time period. And I think having somebody with that perspective on your board of directors, somebody who'd be like, we're not leaving anybody out, to have that
Mm,
perspective in a time when no one was doing that.
right.
It's super powerful. And if you plug that in right now, if you think about that, what that would look like, world changing.
And then you had a name I haven't seen in a little while, and that's Condoleezza Rice. Talk a little bit about how did Condoleezza Rice make your list of board of directors?
Yeah, with such respect for what she achieved, and it has nothing to do with her politics. Because that's one thing I learned from the letter writing. Like I said about Dana, I connected with so many people who either believed or don't believe in what I believed in. And then it just didn't matter as much after I reached out to him, connected to him. So I'm not tapping into Condoleezza's side. I'm tapping into Condoleezza's intellect. Is she's not afraid to be like superstar politician in the government, but then serve on the college football playoff committee. And then she said her dream job. Here's this woman who's achieved so much more than I could imagine achieving. But she said, they were like, what is your dream job? She didn't say the president of the United States. That'd have been the obvious answer. I believe she was the secretary of state, but she didn't say any of those things. She said, I want to be the commissioner of the NFL. That's my people. My people is the people who do all that and love sports. And for her to say that too, it's just, and to take the time to serve on that college football, the committee. I mean, I just think that's fascinating that that's
Yeah.
what she want to do. And so that, again, she's got double perspectives. I think that'd be an incredible asset in a board of directors.
How big of a box would you have to build to try to put someone like that in? Because she wants to do everything, and there are no limitations.
Right. And I want to live that way. She's a great example to all of us, and the things she's achieved again are fascinating. And she's not a polarizing individual, which is a credit to who she is.
Yeah. I want to go back to something that we talked about earlier, and that is, and the word that keeps popping up for me is the courage it takes to go from idea, because we all have ideas, but it takes courage to say, no, I'm gonna execute against this idea in some big way, in some small way, but I'm gonna make more of this than just it being an interesting thought. Where does that courage come from?
I think that's a great question. That's hard to answer. I don't know. I've learned in a few things that I've done, when you push yourself over that hump, that all of a sudden these magical things start to happen. And I think one of the great elements, I mean, one of the great takeaways from that letter writing story is just that, is saying, I just took some small little, well, it wasn't small, it was huge gut instinct with the Dana, but the Facebook letters was less of a lightning bolt moment. But taking that inclination and trusting yourself, trusting your own crap just enough to do something, that's when we start to change the world. And I think another message that comes out of that is, let's encourage each other to do those things, because I'm
Mm.
surrounded by a few people who are like, yeah, let's go. And if we don't have the yeah, let's go people, then things don't change. And we can be those people to other people, because I think we live in a world where we're looking for a blueprint of how to get where we need to go. Instead, we just need to look inside ourselves, because we probably have an idea, like you said, unique to anyone else's idea. And if we can, and I think that's something like a podcast like this is going to help people with, is you share stories, you share inspirations to get people to get the idea out.
I love that, and you caused me to start thinking about my profession, and that's executive coaching. And I can tell you, when I go into an executive coaching conversation with everything mapped out, right, based on their background, based upon what they typically do, this is probably what they're going to talk about. I'm going to share this tool and that tool, and I've got a script. It's I mean, it's some good stuff. I mean, I've been some places, I've done some things, I've got some tools, but it's never as good as when I go in and they tell me, the client tells me what they want to accomplish, and my internal dialogue is, oh my God, I see why you need a coach for that, because I got nothing for you. Woo, we're gonna have to figure this out together. Let's just jump in and see where this needs to go. It's always a better conversation than those that are planned out and those that are scripted. How has this letter writing campaign, this letter writing experience helped you with your professional writing?
I absolutely started to trust my voice in the letters because the letters were so impactful. And again, I don't think that's because I'm a great writer. I think I'm a good writer, but I think the intentionality and the deliberate act of letter writing really helped the way it was received. But I did in over the course of 600 letters and then add the Dana letters on that. I mean, I absolutely found my voice in those letters. And I think I'll always be a better writer because of the letters because I just had to practice it over and over and over. And by the end, I could have written a letter to the wall and it would have been super meaningful, but I absolutely found myself in a way that I never could have found my voice, my writing voice.
Gotcha. Now let's talk a little bit about your professional writing. What kind of writing do you do, and where can people find the work that you do professionally?
Yeah, well, my website, amydaughters.com's got both the books. And then I mean you can Google me. I've taken a pause from the sports writing, but I'm out there on the worldwide interweb. So the two books are the best thing, and then a lot of college football writing.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And then one of the things that you are just really reminding me of is an author by the name of Susan Scott. And Susan Scott wrote the book Fierce Conversations. She's written Fierce Leadership. She's written a couple of books. She really talks about how it's important to just act, to just take the step, to have the courage to trust yourself, to take the action, to have the conversation. And one of the things that she talks about is the biggest mistake that leaders have with conversations is expecting that it has actually taken place. People believe that they've had conversations and they've talked around the conversation, they've hinted at the conversation, they've suggested they may have thought about the conversation, but they actually haven't had the conversation. Back to this thing of action. How has this affected, or has this affected the conversations that you have with either your editors, the people that you work with? How has the letter affected your voice?
Oh, I think it's affected it in ways that I probably can't even say, but I will say in all my relationships, including my professional ones, it's made me approach people in a different way because the letters taught me over and over again that I wasn't seeing the full person, which sounds very simple and obvious, but it was profound because each of those letters I had to go look at the person. One, I realized what their real life kind of looked like. And then two, I realized I was like, wait, I had to fill the second page. So I was like, who is this person to me? This person is meaningful to me. And I think there was the me who I was a fine person before the letter writing. And then after that 600 letters, I will never look at any relationship the same way because I know, in talking to you, I know there's a million things about you that I can't know. And so, as much as I want to be handled, not with kid gloves, but with compassion and kindness and patience, that's the way you want to be handled too. And you're warranted, your story warrants you to be treated that way, And so I noticed a shift in the way I handled my side of relationships because the letters. And again, like I said, I cared less about how you voted or what I mean, those things still matter. They matter to me, they matter to you, but it doesn't dictate who I can care about and connect with. And I think that was a dramatic, profound change for me
Yeah.
because I don't want to have a side anymore. I want to be on your side. I want to be on the side of us working together in a way that's beneficial to both of us and it's pleasant and we're both going to feel like this is a good relationship. Like if I had to work with anyone, I'd want to work with you, Galen, because you've treated me well, and so therefore, in return, I've treated you well.
Mhm. You something you've mentioned a couple of times, and I'm going to tell you that this is a heartbreaking comment for me because I have always enjoyed meeting people who I know have difference of opinion than I do. I have always enjoyed it because I feel like whether I'm not trying to convince you. You're probably not going to convince me, but I love having the conversation because I feel like I'm smarter after the conversation is over because I had it with someone with a different opinion. In today's world, that doesn't seem to be as possible because we seem to have been sold this idea that unless you believe everything that I believe, then I must destroy you.
Right. Right. And I think that was put very eloquently. And I think you are rare that we're better off. We can learn from each other if we discuss or we connect but it really, it's, people talk about unconditional love or unconditional, really, we're participating in conditional connection. Like we only
Mm.
connect with each other if, and I think your coaching and the way you approach people makes you very unique. But, now I'll only connect with you if you voted like I do, you believe exactly what I do. And you said you did a great thing about Condolisa's big box, but I'll only connect with you if you fit into the box that I so desperately
Ah.
need you to fit into. And that's one of the great elements of the letter writing story because it gives me a jump off point to talk about just that. Because all those connections, I really, I cared less and less because if you reach out to me and then I reach out to you, our connection is more important than all those other things.
And that's the connection back to leadership, right? Because the objective, the goal of the leader really should be to make a connection, to make a personal connection with the people that are in their organization, the people that they're asking to do amazing things. You want to have a connection with them. I have said a couple of times that people will follow for their reasons, not yours. People follow for their reasons, not yours. And if you believe that to be true, then your job as a leader is to find out what's their reason for following, right? What's that thing that's important to them? And we seem to be losing our way. Do you sense that we're finding our way again? Can letter writing be a pathway back to just connecting with people just for the sake of connecting?
In my experience, absolutely. And again, professionally, personally, my story is more personal than professional, but it absolutely because what it does, it takes us out of this mode where I think we automatically, and I don't think we're doing it because we're bad people, but the way the world is set up where we have this great divide between us and we all have to stand boldly on our side, you know, it makes us almost look at each other and inherently, like as a part of us, say, so what does this person believe in? Who are they aligned with? And look for something like I want to look for the bad will in someone else. And then we forget that each one of us has a hero inside of us that's
I
worth celebrating.
love
And if
that.
we could just see that hero, and I think letter writing is the non-villain zone. Like there's not a villain when you're writing a letter, and it could be two sentences or 74 pages, but there's not a villain there because the only intention is, to express something to someone else, and it doesn't have to be some cheesy thing, just express something good to somebody else. And so it takes that all away magically. And I didn't know that coming into it.
Wow. So what advice would you give to someone who's listening? Because we are streaming in 20 different countries. We've got folks in all industries. We've got folks who are they just enjoy the idea of somebody's drinking whiskey and talking about jazz music, right? So, but what recommendation would you have if they've heard this and they said, "Huh, that's kind of interesting." I've got a friend that I remember from 40 years ago that I went to camp with. I wonder what they're doing. I wonder if they would receive a letter, but right now it's just an idea. What would you suggest to that person to take it from being just an idea to something that they actually try?
Right. And my advice would be whatever the context is, because I speak about this a lot, and usually people have someone come up in their head. Like maybe it's someone work, maybe someone personal, maybe it's someone in their family, and it doesn't really matter. I would say, first of all, the number one rule in writing notes and handwritten letters is there are no rules. Whatever your personality and whatever your inclination, it's the whole thought process we talked about trust yourself, trust what's inside of you. And the way I did it isn't necessarily the right way. It was the right way for me. And you don't have to be a writer to do this either. So my advice is to go get a small card from Target or Walmart. if your inclination is to write 2 sentences to this person from 40 years ago, say, hey, I just want to let you know, I've been thinking about you. I remember all those things. I remember all that stuff. And I just sit back and smile. I hope you're well. I hope your family's well. I'll never forget you, Galen. Or, you see that someone's lost their dad. You send them a quick note. And you know when someone's lost someone, you know what? We don't ever have the right thing to say. But the mistake would be not saying it.
Mm.
The smallest card, and do it one time and mail it off and don't expect a response and see what happens, not only to the person on the other end, but what happens to you. And the more you participate, the more fulfilling it becomes, And I would just take that first small step. And I guarantee you, if I would be lying if I said, I wrote a note this morning and sat down over that note and thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this again. And then I finished it. It's sitting right over here on the side of my desk. It's the best thing I did today, Galen. The best thing
Wow.
I did today.
I'll tell you something that you just said is going to stay with me. It's probably going to find its way into my work. You said that we never have the right things to say, but the biggest mistake is not saying it. We never have the right things to say, but the biggest mistake is not saying it. I am just so honored. And I think that there is a reason why the universe caused you to check out our podcast and see how you could be a part of this conversation, because you've got me rethinking a lot of things that I have just not done because I let the thought remain a thought. And I am just so excited that you are now part of this community. What final words or thoughts do you have for the general podcast listener? Because I got to get you into the VIP room because folks are waiting to get you. They're gonna love you. But before we go into the VIP room, what final words do you have for our general listeners?
Well, I mean, the obvious thing to say is to write a note, but I think beyond that, in a bigger scope, based on our conversation, I think it's, what is that gut instinct you're thinking of within yourself in listening to this conversation? What is that thing you're thinking, oh, that you go to bed and I think, oh, tomorrow, the next day, and you just let it slip away. Hey, go do it. Go do the first part of it and see what happens. And let's boldly step out into the unknown and mess it all up and make it beautiful together.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, hey, well, raise your glass if you've got any left. I'm gonna knock back this old Weller Antique 107. But again, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for doing what you do the way that you do it, because I believe that the world is on the path to being better because of you. So I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It is an honor to be on, and cheers to you and your entire listening audience. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey, it's not too late. Hit that subscribe button so you're sure to catch the next episode. If you're really enjoying the vibe, leave us a review or become a VIP for guest and show exclusives. Cheers.